Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about multi-grafted trees. So I've watched a few videos on YouTube of multi-grafted trees, but the videos show trees that are very young and you don't get to see the fruits, and there are very little details about it. So today I'm going to make a video on that, and I'll show you what the tree looks like. We'll talk about ideas if you want to graft it on your own, advantages and disadvantages of multi-grafted trees, and a bunch of other fun things. Here I have a multi-grafted pear tree. I started with 3 grafts, actually 4, sorry, and then I added a bunch more as we go along, and so now the tree is I think 6 or 7 in one. So right now we are almost in springtime, so the tree is still pretty bare, but I will show you images of the fruits once the tree bare, and you see the different one, and they just look amazing. So here is the grafted tree with multiple different varieties. I've eaten most of the pears already. Then I realized that I should do a review on them so you can see. So I I saved a few. So here we're gonna pick first the this is the Shinseki. This is the Shinseki variety. I've had so many fruits, but now I only have one left, so we'll pick this one here. So when they're ready, they turn into this kind of like yellowish color. So when they're still not mature, they're more green, but at this stage they're still good regardless, and nice and crunchy. And the Olympic giant that I mentioned earlier is this one here, and you can see it's a very large pear. And here is the graft. See, I grafted right here, this little section. It healed up nicely, so we'll go ahead and pick this one here. This is the Olympic giant. Look how big that is. It gets a lot bigger than this. Here's another Olympic giant that I grafted. And then here is a 20th century. So this is very similar to the Shinseki, a little bit smaller. So that's 20th century. I had a Jojiro, but it only produced 1 fruit this year, so I can't show that to you right now. But here, back here, these are Hosui. I've also picked most of the Hosui already, so these are a few that are left. Okay, here is a closer look at the pears. I made sure to label them so that we don't get confused, because some of them look very similar. And again, these are on very small, younger trees, so once the tree gets fuller and older, the fruits are gonna get much larger, especially the Olympic giant. They're very, very big. The Shinko as well, it does get bigger, and the Hosui also gets a lot bigger. Okay, so there it is, Olympic giant right here, Hosui right here, Shinseki here, 20th century, and Shinko. So the few things that I'm going to talk about here is first, how to maintain your multi-grafted tree, which is probably the most important thing if you decided to buy your own. So that is, you're gonna have to prune very often. So what happens is, when you buy multi-grafted trees, they use a rootstock, which is a very strong rootstock. Right here I have a European pear, which is the rootstock. The rootstock is basically the bottom, the host for the grafts. And then they take grafts from other mature trees. The reason they take mature trees is so that they can fruit faster. So the grafts here, you can see they're at different sizes, and that happens often is because some varieties will outgrow the other very easily, and if you don't trim them constantly to keep them the same, one variety would take over, and then the other one would just not grow well. It could potentially die as well. So here I have a Hosui, which is the back right here, the one in the rear. man, that variety grows so much faster than the rest, and it was just taken over. And so I had to trim. You see that the top right there, it was just like a few more feet higher than that. So I chopped it off so that they can all be at the same length. If you don't do that, one will take over, and then the rest will just not grow. All the energy will focus on that one, and then you may not get fruits for the rest. And if you do, you're gonna get very little because all the energy is going to the strong one. So it does require constant trimming. So when you trim, make sure they're all about the same length. Don't let one grow higher than the other. Same with apple. So here's my multi-grafted apple tree. I just added a few more, and as you can see, the length of each variety is very similar, except there's one weak variety right here. This one, it just grows the slowest, and if I don't cut the rest to be even to that variety may not even grow at all, and it's probably gonna eventually not survive with the rest taking all of its resources. Let's talk about some of the advantages to having a grafted tree, multi-grafted tree. The advantage is that you can grow multiple varieties of your favorite fruits in a very small space. So you can see here, I have 6 or 7 varieties of Asian pears in just one tree, instead of having to grow 7 varieties. So that is one of the advantage. And another advantage is that certain varieties require pollination from another variety, and if you don't grow 2 types of pears, then you may not get fruits, and if you do, it's going to be very little. So having multiple varieties will help with the pollination, and then you will have more fruits than you would without it. Also, you have to pick varieties that bloom at the same time. So when you buy multi-grafted tree, the people that do the grafting in your nursery, they already have done that for you, so you don't have to do anything. But if you are doing it on your own, you're gonna have to pick varieties that open up the blooms around the same time, because if you have one that open up in March and then another one that open up in May, it'll be too late for the flowers to pollinate each other. So that would be a problem. Okay, and another thing you can do is you can graft pear varieties that are self-fruitful. So they self-pollinate, which is like the Shinseki that I have, Hosui, and 20th Century, which is all on there. They just self-pollinate, and without a pollinator, they still produce fruit. And so that is one of the advantages. Disadvantages are, again, I just mentioned you have to do constant trimming, because you got to keep all of the branches the same size, or else one would take over and then the other one may potentially just die or would not grow much. Another one disadvantage is that it may not produce, or not may, but it will not produce as much as a single tree with just one variety. Because the pear here, you see the branches are not very big. Usually on grafted trees, the branches don't get very big. And so you're not going to get as much fruit as, see that single pear tree over there? That pear produced like crazy. These here are just much less, so you're not going to get as much. Also, they won't grow as big as the single pear tree. And if they do, they take a long time. Okay, so with that, we can talk about certain ideas. If you want to start grafting your own, you can grow a pear or an apple from seed, and then wait until it's big enough and take a little branch and graft it onto your tree. And I have done that. The problem with that is, starting from seed, whatever you're growing, it's gonna take a long time before it can fruit, like 5 to 10 years or whatever. But it is a fun thing to do, and I've done that. Let me show you. So here, you see, that is an apple there, and I trimmed it right there. You see the cut? Just cut it in half, and then I took the piece and I grafted onto this apple tree for fun. See, I have an extra branch right there that I don't really care for. Instead of cutting it off, I grafted a new variety onto that just to see. Also, you can use as practice. And so if you're successful grafting these little shoots, then it will help you graft the real stuff. And so that's the reason I've been using those for practice. Now, let me show you a few more. So here, these are suckers. Suckers are basically shoots that grow from the base of the original rootstock. And that usually happens when there's like you do some trimming, or the tree is stressed or some kind of damage. If the tree break in half, you will see like a break like that, you will see the suckers will come out of the ground just to try to replace it. But yeah, so these suckers here come from the ground, so I chopped it off and then I took this variety here and I grafted onto it. And it helps with practicing. So I do a lot of grafting just for fun, and I get really good success because pears are super easy. I get like around almost 100% success. It's so easy to do. And so here, this is my Korean giant top, and then I grafted onto the sucker there. Same with this one here, and that is from this sucker. Okay, and another thing you can do as an idea is grow your tree from seed, which I did. I have 2 pear trees right here that I grew from seeds, and it took a long time. Again, growing from seed is not recommended because it's going to require a lot of time, and the once they fruit, it may take 5 to 10 years, and the fruit may not be exactly like the fruit where you took the seed from. So it might be something different because these pears, they cross-pollinate, and so they may just be something else. And so that is one reason many people don't want to grow from seed, because then, you don't want to wait 5 years and surprise, your fruit don't taste good, or it's bland, it's not sweet, or it's super sour. And so that is why they buy grafted trees, because you can take a graft from a variety that tastes really delicious and you graft it onto another tree and you get the exact replica of that, because the fruit is gonna be sweet because it is from the exact tree. So that's the reason. So but if you want to have fun, you can grow from seed right there like I did, and then once it get big enough, you see, I chopped it off right here, and I took a Korean giant, which is my favorite pear variety, and I grafted onto the top. And now this pear tree here is gonna become a Korean giant. And funny thing is, I took a very mature branch, so it actually produces flowers and potential fruits. I think last year I had a few small fruits sprouted from it, and I had to pull it off because the tree is just too small. I didn't want it to fruit yet. But yeah, if you want to experiment, grow from seed, it'll take about 2 to 3 years to get to the size where you can experiment with. So if you have time, then do that. And then also another thing you can do is take varieties from your multi-grafts, because I prune every season, because you must prune to keep them all the same size. And so once you prune, you take branches and then you graft it onto your other varieties. Look at that. That is a Shinko, and now I have, like, you see all those tags? Those are all branches that I prune, and so I grafted onto there, and they all took. It is crazy. So now this is going to be called a fruit salad tree, because it's going to have a ton of different varieties on it. All those tags are different varieties. And then guys, check this out. This is the craziest thing. Here is an apple. This is an apple grafted onto a pear, and I used the bud graft. I took, you see how the purple looks with the hair? This pear doesn't have hair. And let me show you where I took the bud from. Right here, guys. You see that? This is what I took the bud from. You see, there's the hair is kind of purple. So I took a little bud right here, and I grafted onto that tree. And this is almost a year old now. You see, it's growing nicely. Got a new branch right here from the bud, and then another branch right there that's coming out. And so this is actually for practice. You see, I normally won't let a shoot grow that low, but because I was using these for practice, I left it. So I experiment with it. So now I have an apple onto my pear, and then another shoot here has 2 branches, and then I graft 2 more varieties onto it. So yeah, I have a ton of different varieties now. So these pear trees are just gonna look fantastic, and they have produced fruits. And I've gotten like Korean giants and Hosui and what is it, Shinseki, Jojiro. I mean, they're just beautiful when they bloom, but they also better when they fruit. So here is my Korean giant here, and I also have multiple grafts onto it. I grafted a really big Shinko branch onto it right here, and I've got a bunch of fruits from this branch of a different variety. So you see, so you can graft a ton of different varieties onto the pears that you already have. Take this one, graft it over there, take that one, graft it over here, and so on. Just in case, something happened to one of the tree, you still have, like a remain grafted onto another tree, so it's gonna go on forever. And also, if you have friends that also grow different varieties of pear, trade scions and then graft it onto your tree. Now you have, a fruit salad tree. So anyway, that is basically what I want to discuss. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.